Welcome, this is Mr. Bowlby. We are in Domain 2, Grade 3, the classification of animals, Lesson 3, Vertebrate animals. Okay, let's get started. What have we learned already? Well, we know that scientists classify animals. The name for this branch of study, science, is taxonomy. Classifying means grouping things together based on how they are alike, and separating them by how they are different. Taxonomists classify animals based on their characteristics. We classify animals so that we can learn more about them. Rattenborough introduced us to his 5 friends, Tabitha Toad, Hilda Hippo, Ebenezer Egret, Paula Piranha, and Anna Anaconda. The names of Rattenborough's friends all use a literary device called alliteration, in which the friends' first names and last names begin with the same letter sound, except for Ebenezer Egret. We named the 5 vertebrate groups of animals to which Rattenborough's 5 friends belong: amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles. We also learned which invertebrate group has the greatest number of species identified by taxonomists. That would be the insect group. Has the greatest number of species on Earth. Here are some good vocabulary words for you to remember while reading this lesson, or listening. Cartilage, column, crustacean, exoskeleton, nerves, slither, spine, and vertebra. You can feel free to pause at any time to read and rewind the video to go back and review. Which of Rattenborough's friends are cold-blooded and which ones are warm-blooded? If we look on the left here, we see all of the cold-blooded, and on the right we see all of the warm-blooded. So Tabitha Toad, Paula Piranha, and Anna Anaconda are cold-blooded, whereas Hilda the Hippo and Ebenezer Egret are warm-blooded. Then it says, name which vertebrate groups are cold-blooded and which groups are warm-blooded. Amphibians, fish, and reptiles are cold-blooded. Mammals and birds are warm-blooded. Very good. Listen carefully. Think about whether the description is an example of a cold-blooded animal or a warm-blooded animal. Think about the characteristics you've learned about cold-blooded and warm-blooded animals. Answer in complete sentences. On a warm summer day, painted turtles will gather on a log sticking out of the river so they can bask in the sun. The sun's warmth will increase the turtles' internal body temperatures. A walrus's body is large and solid. It has a thick layer of blubber that helps it keep its body temperature constant. So which is an example of a cold-blooded and which is an example of warm-blooded? Very good. The turtle is an example of a cold-blooded animal. And a walrus is an example of a warm-blooded animal. Very good. Because an elephant lives in a hot climate, sometimes its body gets too warm. To keep its body temperature constant, extra heat is released from its large, thin ears. Plus, it can use its ears as fans. The elephant is an example of a warm-blooded animal. Good job. In the winter, a bullfrog hibernates to save energy while it sits on the bottom of a cold pond. In spring, when the water warms, the frog's body temperature will warm too, allowing it to become active again. In very dry times, the bullfrog will estivate in the mud to keep from drying out. Do you remember the word estivate from the last lesson? If not, go back and review. The frog is an example of a cold-blooded animal. Good job. Hello, everybody. Rattenborough, world traveler and presenter of animals, back for another exciting day of slideshow and tell. Last time, we classified or grouped animals as cold-blooded and warm-blooded. Yes, I am warm-blooded just like you. And how about my friend Hilda Hippo? Yes, Hilda Hippo is also warm-blooded. We all have another characteristic in common too, and that is what we are going to talk about today. We are all vertebrates. That's right. Vertebrates have backbones, and animals without backbones are called invertebrates. Because you and I are both vertebrates, we'll talk about vertebrates first. Let's take a look at the hippopotamus. When you look at the outside of an animal, you can't see the backbone because it is on the inside. But sometimes you can tell where the backbone is. Under a vertebrate's skin, there is a ridge. This is the backbone, or spine, that starts near its head and runs all the way down back to its tail. Before we go any further, see if you can find your own spine or backbone, just like you did the other day. Reach around and rub the middle of your back. Remember those bumpy bones? Each bump you feel is a separate vertebra. They form a row from your neck all the way down your backbone to your tailbone. Your spine serves a very important purpose. Your spine protects your spinal cord, that large bundle of nerves that send messages from your brain to every part of your body. We will discuss nerves and brains in a different domain later. For today, let's take a glimpse at the backbone of the 5 species to which my friends belong. We've seen the hippopotamus has a backbone. Next, let's take a look at one of Ebenezer's fellow egrets. Its backbone, or spinal column, helps it hold its head up high and protects its spinal cord. Like all egrets, Ebenezer could not live without his backbone. All birds have backbones, or vertebrae. Snakes don't look like they have backbones, do they? Even though snakes slither or slip and slide along, they absolutely do have backbones. A snake's vertebrate, like an anaconda's, runs the length of its body and swing low to the ground as its muscles help it move along the ground or climb up trees. A pair of ribs is attached to each vertebrate, protecting the body parts inside the snake's body. All reptiles have backbones, so you can't always tell from the outside whether an animal is a vertebrate with a spine or backbone, or whether it is an invertebrate. How about a fish? Would you say fish have a backbone? The answer is yes. All fish have backbones too, just as reptiles, birds, and mammals do. It's very tricky to see, but if you took an X-ray of its body, you would see that all other tiny bones make up the skeleton of the fish, are connected to its spine. Paulo told me that even though all fish have backbones, some fish, like sharks and stingrays, have backbones that are made of lighter or more bendable cartilage instead of hard bone, allowing them to be more flexible and travel more quickly. That leaves amphibians. Take a look at my animal friends one more time. Pay close attention to the toad next to Tabitha. It's hard to tell when you look at a toad's body that there's a backbone inside. Now tell me, do toads have backbones? Yes, to be sure, they certainly do. Toads are vertebrates too. All amphibians have backbones. That means that all 5 of the animals you've seen today are vertebrates. They all have backbones. The question I'm going to present to you, students, is this. Do all animals on Earth have backbones? What are your predictions, boys and girls? We know that mammals, which include hippopotami, me and you, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, are all vertebrates too. Haven't we covered all the animal groups on Earth? Haha, trick question. If you said no, your predictions are correct. Do you remember if there are more vertebrates or more invertebrates on Earth? Good ideas. Let's look at this image that I shared with you earlier. Remember, more than 95% of all animal species are invertebrates, and insects are the biggest group of invertebrates. And there are still so many invertebrates yet to be discovered and classified. As you can see in the image, vertebrates are actually only a tiny group here on Earth. Because we tend to think and talk mostly about vertebrates, we sometimes forget that most of the animals in the world are actually invertebrates, and most of those are insects. Ooh, creepy crawlies. Lots of them. Think how many insects there must be on our planet. No wonder insects are the most plentiful group of organisms that ever lived. They make up 3/4 of all species in the animal kingdom. Think of that. Can you name a few of the many animals in the insect group? Flies, wasps, beetles, cockroaches, ladybugs, and butterflies are all insects. There are surely a lot more species of insects than there are species of amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles all put together. Even though insects are by far the largest group of invertebrates, they are not the only invertebrates. Here's another question for you to think about. Close your eyes and pretend you are a taxonomist for a moment. Can you think of any other animals without a backbone? Here's a hint. Instead of an internal vertebrate, these animals have external or outer hard body covering. The largest group of invertebrates is made of arthropods. Insects make up the largest group of arthropods. Another large group of arthropods include arachnids. Spiders are arachnids, and so are ticks, daddy longlegs, and scorpions. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. The ant in this image has a very long antennae. They almost look like legs. In comparison, arachnids have 8 legs and 2 body parts. Instead of having flexible skeletons, all of the arthropods wear a tough exoskeleton or protective covering on the outside. I bet you can recognize some of these common examples of insects and arachnids. Quite a few insects and arachnids in these pictures. Wow! A crustacean. Now, the Latin word crustus, which means hard-shelled ones. Okay? A crustacean is another kind of invertebrate, and also a type of arthropod. Crustaceans have exoskeletons and usually live in water. Copepods are the smallest of the crustaceans. They are barely visible, but they are a very important source of food for fish in the ocean. Can anyone think of other animals that are classified as crustaceans? Good ideas. Some of the more common crustaceans include shrimp, lobsters, fiddler crabs, and blue crabs. These animals all have a hard exoskeleton, which protects the body and keeps it from drying out. Have you ever seen a crab? If you eat a blue crab like this one, or a lobster, you have to remove its hard exoskeleton to find the tasty meat inside. Well, some people think it's tasty meat inside. Okay. Snails, jellyfish, and earthworms are also invertebrates. Other spineless creatures include coral, sea anemones, and sea stars. Many invertebrates are small and hidden, and many may not even seem like animals, but they are by far the largest group of animals populating the Earth. What a lot of ways, what a lot of ways, there are to classify animals. In order to study living things, taxonomists classify each organism according to its kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. The purpose of this classification system is to understand each organism better by the characteristics that make it unique. Vertebrates and invertebrates are two types of animals in the world of taxonomy. It is just one way of classifying animals, but I think it is a very helpful way, don't you? You and I may not look alike at all like, or much like Ebenezer, Tabitha, or Anna, but we have very distinct similarity to one another. We all have backbones. Look at this chart that shows how a group of familiar organisms are related to each other. On the top row, you can see a group of organisms, living organisms, a house cat, a mountain lion, a tiger, a seal, a turtle, a grasshopper, and a tree. In the next row titled Kingdom, notice that one of the living organisms is no longer included, the tree. The tree actually belongs to a different kingdom. This row now shows only organisms that are part of the animal kingdom. In the next row, titled Phylum, the grasshopper is no longer included. All of the rest of the animals represented here are vertebrates, part of the chordata phylum. In looking at the class row, you may notice that the turtle is no longer included. The turtle is in the reptile class, and all the other animals shown are mammals. In the row labeled order, the mouse is not included because it is not a carnivore like the other animals shown. What's true about all the animals in the next row? Family. That's right, they are all different types of cats. In the genus row, you can now see the house cat and the mountain lion are closely related, and more closely related than the tiger. And the very last row represents one specific animal, the species of house cat. Meow. Meow, 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 meow. Mine are lying around here somewhere, staying out of trouble. For now. This process of starting out with many animals and ending up with just one is called the process of elimination. As we went down the list, we eliminated or removed any animals that no longer had anything in common. The next time we get together, I'll be showing you slides of fish, from tiny goldfish to gigantic sharks, and teaching about how scientists classify them according to many different characteristics. You may already know that fish are cold-blooded vertebrate. Be thinking about some other characteristics that scientists might use to classify fish. See you next time. The word elimination means to remove. When do you use elimination? When you're removing something. Eliminate. Good. Questions? Feel free to pause and respond. You can write down your answers or just verbally. What is a vertebrate? An animal with a backbone. Very good. What groups of animals are considered vertebrates? Reptiles, amphibians, fish, mammals, birds. Those are the main 5 groups that we're talking about. Good job. Write vertebrate for each animal group in the classification chart. What is another group, or what is another name for the backbone in vertebrates? Spinal column. Very good. Now, why is the backbone or spine of vertebrates so important? Well, it's important because it protects the bundle of nerves or the spinal cord that carry messages to your brain. So yeah, you need that working. The way in which an individual vertebrate of a snake fits with the next one allows the animal to move with a special kind of movement. It allows the snake to slither. What very large group of animals is not a vertebrate group? Very large group of animals. Insects. And they are called invertebrates because they do not have backbones. Remember, invertebrates is already written on the chart in the insect column. Good job. In the read aloud today, you heard about one group of invertebrates called crustaceans, which includes lobsters and crabs. Why is the exoskeleton important to crustaceans? It is the tough outer covering that protects its internal body parts. Very good. You heard today that some skeletons or vertebrates are made of bone, and some skeletons are made of softer tissue called cartilage. What are some examples of vertebrates with skeleton made of bone? Humans, frogs, some fish, birds, etc. Good job. What is an example of vertebrate with a lighter skeleton made of cartilage? Sharks. Ooh, a shark and a stingray are both good examples. How is the skeleton made of cartilage helpful to a shark or a stingray? Cartilage is more flexible and lighter than bone, which allows a shark or ray to swim faster and be more flexible. Remember, you can always pause in between questions and answers. Either write down your answers or verbally respond. Good job. I'm going to ask you a question. I will give you a minute to think about the question. Then I will ask you to turn to your neighbor and discuss the question. Finally, I'll call on several of you to share what you discussed with your partner. In the read aloud today, you learned how skeleton and bones of certain vertebrates allow them to live in a certain way. How do you think the skeleton and bones you have help you live the way you do? Do you think that another type of skeleton and bones would be better? Include examples and vocabulary from the text. So think about that and discuss. The word of this lesson is slither. We heard, even though snakes slither or slip and slide along, they absolutely do have backbones. When animals slither, they slide smoothly, often with a slight zigzag pattern. The snake made no noise as it began to slither smoothly onto the rock to bask in the sun. Have you ever seen a snake slither? What animals other than snakes can slither? Be sure to use the word slither when you tell about it. So you'd respond, I think they slither when they use the word slither. Okay, good. Acting and sharing activity. You'll turn to a partner and use your arm to show them what slithering looks like. Share with your partner what it would look like to be able to slither like a snake or not. Would you like to slither like a snake? Why or why not? Make sure you use the word slither in a complete sentence. Good job. Act it out. This is a fun classroom activity. We're going to act out some animals that have been mentioned in today's read aloud. The actor should use actions that are characteristic of each animal. Think about how to portray or show some of the characteristics and behaviors that will help class identify the animal. You'll choose a piece of paper from the container of names: crab, spider, daddy longlegs, toad, snake, hippopotamus, egret, piranha, shark, cockroach, butterfly. There can be more included as well. Each student should include clues that show whether the animal is warm-blooded or cold-blooded, and whether the animal is vertebrate or invertebrate. Good. That's a fun one. Continuing on. Ask yourselves, does it cool itself in the water? Does it bask in the sun? Does it burrow in the mud? Does it have hard exoskeleton? Does it have a rigid backbone on its body? It's kind of like playing 20 questions. Other students should observe carefully. Raise your hand if you think you know what the animal is. When called on to guess the animal, first state whether you think the animal is cold-blooded or warm-blooded, whether you think the animal is vertebrate or invertebrate. Share the acting clues that were helpful evidence in identifying the animal, and use domain-related vocabulary in the discussion whenever possible. Okay? You have this in your listening journal, vertebrate animals. To fill in if an animal is considered a vertebrate, it means the animal has a correct backbone. If the animal is considered an invertebrate, it means the animal does not have a backbone. Just give some examples of each. So you'll list in the vertebrate column several animals we've talked about that have backbones. In the invertebrate column, you will list ones that do not have backbones. Very good. This has been Mr. Bowlby, teaching Domain 2, Classification of Animals. This was Lesson 3. Have a good day, and see you in the next lesson.